Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. A violent crackdown on protests in Iran has left at least 646 dead, this according to a US-based human rights group. More than 10,700 people have been arrested as a nationwide communication blackout continues. Iranian authorities are now trying to reassert control through mass rallies in support of the Islamic Republic. Thousands turned out, with President Masoud Pezeshkian seen marching alongside supporters. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei praised the turnout, claiming protests driven by foreign interference have been defeated. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the Iranian embassy in London on Monday, calling for the fall of Iran's Islamic theocracy. Demonstrators waved flags from Iran's former monarchy, overthrown in 1979, and carried placards reading "Make Iran Great Again." Some participants also showed support for Israel and the United States, with Israeli flags seen among the crowd. Police formed lines in front of the embassy as protesters chanted, waved placards and flashed peace signs, maintaining a tense but orderly demonstration. Mexico has firmly rejected any possibility of US troops being deployed on its soil to fight drug cartels. President Claudia Sheinbaum told US President Donald Trump during a phone call. Sheinbaum said a military intervention was not on the table and unnecessary. The leaders also discussed trade and investment. Hamas is reportedly preparing to hold internal elections to rebuild its leadership after Israeli strikes killed several of the group's top figures during the Israel-Hamas war. Sources say the vote could take place in the first months of 2026. But the future of any new leadership remains uncertain, as Israel and international powers are pressing for Hamas to be disarmed and excluded from Gaza's future governance. An Israeli drone strike has killed 3 Palestinians who reportedly crossed the ceasefire line near central Gaza's Morah corridor. The latest deaths add to over 440 fatalities reported by the Gaza Health Ministry since Israel and Hamas agreed to suspend their war in October last year. Bodies were brought to Khan Yunis's Nasser Hospital in Gaza following separate incidents in the enclave. The United Nations interim force in Lebanon says an Israeli tank fired near its peacekeepers, calling the incident part of a worrying pattern. Observers reported 2 Israeli Merkava tanks moving from an army position inside Lebanese territory further into the country. One tank fired 3 shells, with 2 landing roughly 150 meters from UN personnel. As the peacekeepers withdrew for safety, they were tracked by a tank-mounted laser, though fortunately no casualties were reported. The force has warned that such incidents are becoming increasingly common, raising concerns about the safety of peacekeeping forces in the area. In a sweeping crackdown on foreign nationals with criminal records or legal violations, the US State Department says it has revoked more than 100,000 visas. That includes around 8,000 student visas and 2,500 specialized visas. Officials say the effort will continue, vowing to deport what they describe as thugs to keep Americans safe. The move comes as the Trump administration presses ahead with an aggressive overhaul of the immigration system, alongside expanded vetting policies that monitor visa holders after entry for arrest, convictions, or other red flags. Hundreds of students at the Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis staged a walkout on Monday in protest of recent federal immigration enforcement actions. Students marched with signs including "ICE out" and "Welcome to Panem," expressing opposition to the presence of U.S. Border Patrol and ICE agents at and near the school. This after a confrontation last week where federal agents deployed chemical irritants on students and staff during an enforcement operation. In Houston, firefighters battled a 3-alarm fire at a church on Monday afternoon. The Houston Fire Department deployed more than 100 personnel to tackle the blaze. Authorities say no injuries have been reported. Venezuela's interim government says it is prepared to move forward toward productive relations with both the European Union and the United Kingdom. This after recent talks with their envoys signaling a possible thaw in relations after the ousting of Nicolás Maduro. Foreign Minister Ivan Gil urged deeper and more intense channels of dialogue with the EU and Britain, even as Brussels has so far not recognized the new leadership's legitimacy. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is heading to China this week in a bid to repair strained ties as a trade war weighs on both economies. The trip comes amid shifting global alliances, rising trade tensions with the United States, and Ottawa's urgent push to diversify its trading partners. Carney's visit to Beijing will be the first by a Canadian Prime Minister in nearly a decade. He says the goal is to build a stable relationship with China, despite warnings about Chinese election interference and Beijing's growing assertiveness in the Arctic. The Seoul Central District Court is set to resume closing arguments in the trial of former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his associates, who faced rebellion charges over his imposition of martial law in December 2024. Independent counsel is expected to recommend specific sentences for Yoon and others. Yoon faces multiple other trials, including corruption and document fabrication. His brief martial law deployment brought armed troops into Seoul, sparking the country's most serious political crisis in decades. Yoon was impeached in December 2024 and formally removed by the Constitutional Court in April, but he denies wrongdoing, claiming the decree was aimed at rallying public support against opposition obstruction. Former Panama President Ricardo Martinelli has claimed to be innocent as he goes on trial for money laundering in a sprawling corruption case. Martinelli is accused of receiving bribes from Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht at the center of regional corruption scandals. The trial is being closely monitored for its political and legal implications across Latin America. A Dominican court has postponed the preliminary hearing for the owners of the nightclub that collapsed last year until March. The Jet Set Club in Santo Domingo suffered a roof collapse on April 8, 2025 during a concert by merengue star Robbie Perez, killing 236 people in what is considered the worst tragedy in the Caribbean nation in decades. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupted again on Monday, sending lava shooting into the air. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the volcano has been erupting intermittently since December 23, 2024. Each eruption usually lasts under 12 hours, with pauses in activity sometimes stretching more than 2 weeks. Two suspected Nipah virus cases have been reported in West Bengal, prompting the central government to act swiftly. A national joint outbreak response team has been deployed to assist the state in containment and public health measures. The team includes experts from AIIMS Kalyan, the All India Institute of Health and Public Hygiene, the National Institutes of Virology and Epidemiology, and the Department of Wildlife. Both suspected patients are nurses at a private hospital who are currently in critical condition in isolation wards with ventilatory support. Authorities are closely monitoring the situation to prevent further spread. India's meteorological department has issued a cold wave alert for several northern states as temperatures are set to plunge further in the coming days. Delhi recorded its coldest night of the season on Monday, with the mercury dropping to 3.2 degrees Celsius. Authorities warned that dense smog could worsen the chill and sharply reduce visibility. The cold spell is expected to spread beyond North India, affecting parts of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Gujarat and Maharashtra. Meanwhile, dense fog is forecast across parts of Rajasthan, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, disrupting daily life and travel. Asian markets rallied sharply on Tuesday, led by a powerful surge in Japanese shares. The Nikkei jumped more than 3% to fresh record highs after reopening from a holiday, helped by a weaker yen. Talks of fiscal stimulus and strong enthusiasm for artificial intelligence, South Korea and Taiwan also hit all-time peaks, while Chinese blue chips climbed to a 4-year high. MSCI's Asia-Pacific Index outside Japan touched a new record. European futures edged higher, but US futures slipped ahead of key December inflation data and the start of earnings season. Investors are watching results from major US banks, with questions looming over Donald Trump's proposal to cap credit card interest rates, a move banks warn could restrict access to credit. Oil prices edged higher as markets weighed rising concerns over potential supply disruptions in Iran against expected increases in crude from Venezuela. Brent crude futures climbed around 0.4% to about $64 a barrel. The gains come as anti-government protests intensify in Iran, one of OPEC's major producers, raising the specter of reduced exports and prompting talk of possible US action. Meanwhile, prospects of Venezuela's return to export markets could add supply later this year, tempering further price jumps. Additional tensions from Russia-Ukraine conflicts and broader geopolitical uncertainty are also keeping traders alert in energy markets. Gold prices reached to a record above $4,600 an ounce before settling to nearly $4,590 on Monday as investors sought safety amid deepening uncertainty over US Federal Reserve independence and geopolitical tensions. The rally was sparked by a criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell that heightened fears of political pressure on monetary policy, weakening the dollar and boosting bullion demand. Silver also hit fresh highs alongside broad risk aversions in markets. Traders are now pricing in possible future rate cuts, further supporting precious metals as non-yielding assets. The move reflects elevated anxiety across global markets, with traders seeking refuge from volatility and potential economic risks. Meta Platforms have appointed Dina Powell McCormick as its president and vice chairman. weeks after the former top advisor to US President Donald Trump resigned from the social media company's board. Powell McCormick, who spent 16 years in senior leadership at Goldman Sachs, has previously served as a Deputy National Security Advisor to US President Donald Trump in his first term and as a senior White House advisor and Assistant Secretary of State under the Bush administration. Trump congratulated Powell McCormick on her appointment in a Truth Social post, praising her as a fantastic and very talented person. Meta has excluded Italy from its WhatsApp ban on rival AI chatbots after regulatory order. The move follows an interim direction from Italy's antitrust authority, AGCM. The watchdog last month ordered Meta to suspend the proposed ban while it investigates suspected abuse of market power. The probe was launched after complaints from rival AI providers. Meta said phone numbers with an Italian country code are currently exempt from WhatsApp's updated terms of service. According to a Reuters report, some Iranians are still accessing the internet through Elon Musk's Starlink satellite service, despite a near total nationwide communications blackout. Iranian authorities have launched a sweeping crackdown on nationwide protests, including shutting down conventional internet services that rely on fiber optics cables and mobile towers. But Starlink, which beams internet directly from thousands of low Earth orbit satellites, continues to function in parts of Iran, even though the service is officially banned. Australia captain Alyssa Healy has said she will retire from all forms of cricket following the upcoming series against India in March. The 35-year-old wicketkeeper has more than 7,000 runs and 275 dismissals to her name in all formats of the game. She led Australia to a historic 16-0 whitewash of England in the Ashes in 2025. She has won the ODI World Cup twice and the T20 World Cup on 6 occasions. Healy is married to Australia fast bowler Mitchell Starc. She also has a successful broadcasting career as a pundit and commentator. Five-time major champion Brooks Koepka will make a PGA Tour comeback at the end of January under a new returning member program. The American left the breakaway tournament Live Golf in December despite reportedly having 1 year left on his contract. He recently reapplied for his PGA Tour membership. The 35-year-old had controversially quit the PGA Tour to join the Saudi Arabian-backed series in 2022 and won 5 events over 4 seasons.